The morning demolition derby begins. The sun had barely crept over the horizon, casting a soft golden glow across Pinewood Gardens, a suburban Ohio neighborhood where every lawn was manicured to exactly 2.5 inches and mailboxes adhered to a strict palette of 3 approved colors. Marcus Holloway, a 45-year-old electrician with 22 years of rewiring homes under his belt, had chosen this corner lot 3 years ago as a fresh start after a bruising divorce. The house, with its tidy brick facade and enough bedrooms for his teenagers, Emma and Tyler, promised stability, a safe haven for a family piecing itself back together. But stability, Marcus would soon learn, was no match for Brenda Whitmore and her pearl-white Cadillac Escalade, a vehicle so oversized it seemed to mock the narrow streets it patrolled. Brenda, a 52-year-old widow with a penchant for navy blazers and an encyclopedic knowledge of HOA bylaws, had moved into Pinewood Gardens around the same time as Marcus. A retired bank manager with no children and a chip on her shoulder, she'd appointed herself the neighborhood's unofficial compliance officer, a title as fabricated as her saccharine smiles. Her Escalade, gleaming like a mobile monument to her self-proclaimed authority, was her weapon of choice, and Marcus's trash can, placed dutifully at the curb every Tuesday morning per city ordinance, was her target. The first incident struck like a thunderclap in the quiet of a September dawn. Marcus was in the kitchen, brewing coffee and coaxing Emma and Tyler through their morning routines, when a sharp crack shattered the stillness. He rushed outside, bathrobe flapping, to find his brand-new $23 Home Depot trash can reduced to a pile of splintered plastic. Garbage, banana peels, coffee grounds, soggy cereal boxes, spilled across his driveway like a grotesque confetti explosion. In the distance, Brenda's Escalade peeled away, its diesel rumble fading into the morning mist. Marcus stood there, barefoot on the cold asphalt, staring at the wreckage. He chalked it up to an accident. Narrow streets, bad angles, maybe a distracted driver. He spent 20 minutes cleaning up the mess, the acrid scent of diesel lingering as Emma and Tyler watched from the window, their faces a mix of embarrassment and concern. By Friday, the accidents had become a pattern. 3 more trash cans met their demise, each destroyed at precisely 6:15 a.m., right as Brenda took her daily power walk. The crunch of plastic, the screech of tires, the smug silence that followed. It was no coincidence. Marcus's elderly neighbor, Mrs. Olivia, confirmed his suspicions one crisp morning as she watered her roses across the street. Her careful English carried a weight of quiet observation. Brenda took the long way around the corner, deliberately veering close to Marcus's curb despite ample room on the other side. It wasn't carelessness, it was intentional. Marcus tried reasoning with her first. He caught her during one of her afternoon patrols, clipboard in hand, her eyes scanning for infractions like a hawk hunting prey. The conversation was brief and infuriating. Brenda's smile was all teeth, her voice dripping with condescension as she suggested Marcus adjust his placement timing to avoid blocking her path. As if there were some secret hour when the garbage truck didn't require curbside cans. Her words were a masterclass in deflection, blaming the victim while cloaking her aggression in HOA jargon. Marcus returned home, his jaw tight, his mind already turning to solutions. The financial toll began to mount. 4 replacement trash cans in a month, $92 down the drain, and the emotional cost was steeper. Emma and Tyler, already navigating the turbulence of their parents' divorce, grew tense with each new incident. The daily drama seeped into their lives, their friends whispering about the trash can guy at school. Marcus's custody evaluator, a stern woman with a clipboard of her own, noted the neighborhood unrest as a potential mark against his parenting stability. Something had to change, but Brenda wasn't slowing down. If anything, she was escalating. By late September, her morning routine had taken on a performative flair. Marcus caught her making direct eye contact through his kitchen window as she rammed his latest trash can, her lips curling into a smirk that screamed she knew exactly what she was doing. It was a challenge, a dare to fight back. Marcus wasn't one to back down from a challenge, but he wasn't reckless either. Years of troubleshooting electrical systems had taught him to approach problems methodically, test the circuit, find the fault, build a solution. Brenda's game was about to meet its match. That night, Marcus sat at his dining table, laptop open, coffee cooling, as he dove into the labyrinth of municipal codes and HOA bylaws. The city ordinance was clear: trash cans had to be within 3 feet of the curb on collection day, exactly where Marcus placed his. More crucially, HOA jurisdiction ended at the property line. They had no authority over public right-of-way. His trash can, though on city property, was still his personal property, and Brenda's repeated destruction was vandalism, plain and simple. He found a California case where a homeowner had beaten an HOA on similar grounds, and the precedent lit a spark in his mind. He installed a Ring doorbell camera the next day, positioning it to capture every angle of his driveway. The $47 investment felt like a bargain for the peace of mind it promised. He also paid for a professional survey to confirm his placement complied with city rules, the surveyor's report crisp and official in his hands. Mrs. Olivia, her hands trembling slightly, agreed to provide a written statement about Brenda's deliberate detours. "I don't want trouble," she whispered, "but this isn't right." Marcus nodded, understanding the courage it took for her to take a stand. Brenda, meanwhile, was waging her own campaign. The Nextdoor app became her courtroom, where she posted about reckless homeowners endangering children with dangerous corner obstacles. Her 3 loyal supporters, longtime residents who benefited from her selective rule enforcement, chimed in with agreement, but the broader community was starting to push back. Comments called her out for hypocrisy, pointing to her own faded mailbox and overgrown shrubs. The battle lines were forming, and Marcus was no longer alone. Then came the certified letter, its thick paper reeking of fresh ink and bad intentions. It cited an obscure HOA rule about obstructing vehicular traffic, demanding Marcus remedy his improper trash receptacle placement within 72 hours or face $50 daily fines. The audacity was staggering, but so was the timing, delivered just days after Marcus had raised questions about HOA spending at the last board meeting. Brenda was playing hardball, but Marcus was ready to swing back. As October loomed, he knew this was no longer just about trash cans. It was about power, control, and a neighbor who'd picked the wrong electrician to bully. The stage was set for a showdown, and Marcus was wiring his strategy with precision. The escalation of a suburban siege. October settled over Pinewood Gardens like a storm cloud, the crisp air carrying a chill that mirrored the growing tension on Marcus Holloway's corner lot. The morning ritual of Brenda Whitmore's pearl-white Escalade demolishing his trash can had become as predictable as the sunrise, but her smirk, sharp and deliberate, had evolved into something more sinister. Marcus, with his electrician's knack for tracing faulty circuits, sensed the shift. Brenda wasn't just a bully with a clipboard and a vendetta, she was waging psychological warfare, and Marcus's family was squarely in her crosshairs. The certified letter from the HOA, with its legal jargon and $50 daily fine threat, had been Brenda's opening salvo. Marcus had countered with research, uncovering the city's clear ordinance on trash can placement and the HOA's lack of jurisdiction over public right-of-way. His Ring camera, now recording every crunch and screech, had captured 6 more collisions since its installation, each one a pixel-perfect testament to Brenda's intent. But Brenda wasn't content with property destruction alone. She was turning the neighborhood into her personal chessboard, and Marcus was the pawn she aimed to checkmate. Her next move arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, when Marcus returned from a job site rewiring a local diner. A new violation notice was taped to his front door, this one citing his grass height at 2.75 inches, a criminal quarter-inch over the HOA's 2.5-inch limit. The notice, penned in Brenda's meticulous handwriting, demanded immediate correction or face escalating fines. Marcus grabbed a ruler and measured his lawn himself. The grass was barely 2.6 inches, well within any reasonable margin of error, but Brenda's obsession with precision was less about rules and more about control. By Wednesday, 2 more notices appeared. One claimed his mailbox had faded from heritage blue to an unauthorized weathered navy, despite being the same color as half the mailboxes on the street. The other pointed to 3 microscopic tears in his window screens, visible only to someone with a magnifying glass and a grudge. Each violation carried a $50 fine, payable within 10 days, piling onto the $350 Marcus had already spent on replacement trash cans and legal consultations. The financial strain was real, but the emotional toll was heavier. Emma, his 16-year-old daughter, stopped inviting friends over, mortified by the daily spectacle. Tyler, 14, started sketching angry comics about a villainous SUV driver, his way of processing the stress. Marcus decided to fight fire with evidence. He spent a Saturday afternoon walking Pinewood Gardens with a measuring tape and camera, documenting identical infractions on 14 other properties. Gerald Thornfield, the HOA president and Brenda's ally, had grass pushing 3 inches. Mrs. Patterson's mailbox matched Marcus's faded hue. Half the homes on Maple Street had screen damage from a summer hailstorm. Yet only Marcus's violations warranted official attention. The selective enforcement was so blatant it could have been framed as a case study in discrimination. Brenda's social media campaign intensified in parallel. On Nextdoor, she posted daily rants about irresponsible homeowners creating traffic hazards, her language carefully coded to avoid outright naming Marcus. Her trio of loyalists, retired couples with pristine lawns and a history of skating by on their own violations, fueled the fire with comments about newcomers disrespecting community standards. But the tide was turning. Other neighbors, fed up with Brenda's reign, began posting counterarguments, sharing photos of their own faded mailboxes and overgrown grass. The app became a digital battlefield, with Brenda's posts losing traction as more residents questioned her motives. A tip from Dave, Marcus's buddy at the city permit office, revealed Brenda's desperation. 4 complaints about Marcus's dangerous corner had landed at City Hall, each filed at 2:47 a.m. within a 15-minute window. The complaints, though worded differently, bore Brenda's unmistakable style, formal, pedantic, and dripping with righteous indignation. Dave chuckled over the phone, noting the improbability of multiple insomniacs with identical writing habits. Marcus filed this away, his evidence folder growing thicker by the day. The Thursday HOA board meeting was a turning point. The community center, reeking of industrial carpet cleaner, buzzed with tension as 12 homeowners, an unprecedented crowd, filled the folding chairs. Gerald Thornfield, his tie askew, fidgeted nervously as Marcus stood to address the violation notice. Under the hum of fluorescent lights, Marcus laid out his case with surgical precision, the city ordinance mandating curbside placement, the surveyor's report confirming compliance, and Mrs. Olivia's notarized statement about Brenda's deliberate detours. He casually mentioned consulting Amanda Sterling, a property rights attorney who dismantled dozens of HOA overreaches. Brenda's face paled, her water glass trembling in her hand as Marcus concluded with a pointed observation about selective enforcement patterns. Gerald stammered, tabling the matter for further review, but the room's silence spoke volumes. Brenda's authority was cracking, and she knew it. As the meeting adjourned, she cornered Marcus in the parking lot under the harsh glow of security lights. Her voice, loud enough for lingering neighbors to hear, dripped with venom as she accused him of undermining decent neighborhoods, with his disregard for rules. The racial undertones were unmistakable, hanging in the humid air like a toxic fog. Mrs. Rodriguez gasped. Jim Torres, the maintenance guy, studied his keys intently. Marcus's phone, tucked in his shirt pocket, recorded every word. That night, Emma asked why the mean lady hated them so much. Tyler wondered if they'd have to move again. Marcus tucked them into bed, promising resolution, but his mind was racing. The confrontation had revealed Brenda's true colors, and the neighborhood was starting to notice. Whispers of bored overreach spread, with neighbors questioning why only certain homeowners faced scrutiny. Brenda's parking lot meltdown had shifted the dynamic, turning her from a feared enforcer into a public spectacle. The next morning, Brenda's Escalade crawled past Marcus's trash can at a cautious 5 miles per hour, her eyes locked on it like a predator studying prey. The change in tactics was telling. She was planning something bigger. Marcus, sipping coffee at his kitchen window, felt the weight of the fight ahead. His evidence folder now included video footage, surveyor reports, witness statements, and Brenda's recorded outburst. He'd also started digging into HOA financials, spurred by a nagging suspicion about Brenda's cozy relationship with Gerald. The seed of a larger scheme was germinating, and Marcus's electrician instincts told him to keep tracing the circuit. Brenda's next move was coming, and he needed to be ready for the spark. The concrete counterstrike. November swept into Pinewood Gardens with a biting chill, the kind that made breath visible and tempers short. Marcus Holloway's corner lot, once a symbol of his fresh start, had become a battleground, with his trash can at the center of Brenda Whitmore's relentless vendetta. Her pearl-white Escalade, now sporting visible scratches from repeated collisions, roared past his driveway every Tuesday at 6:15 a.m., but Marcus was no longer playing defense. His electrician's mindset, methodical, precise, and wired for solutions, had kicked into high gear, and Brenda was about to meet an immovable object. The idea sparked during a coffee break at Home Depot's contractor desk, where Marcus confided in Dale Kowalski, a grizzled concrete veteran with 23 years of pouring foundations. Dale's weathered face cracked into a grin as he stirred sugar into his coffee with a paint stick. City code, he explained, didn't dictate trash can materials, plastic, metal, or concrete. It was all fair game as long as it held garbage and met size requirements. Marcus's mind lit up like a perfectly wired circuit. For $47, he could buy 60 pounds of concrete mix, steel rebar, and a standard plastic shell to disguise his creation. It was a fraction of the $350 he'd already spent on fines and replacements, and it promised to flip the script on Brenda's morning demolition derby. That weekend, Marcus's garage became a workshop of vengeance. Emma and Tyler, sensing a shift in their father's resolve, joined in with a mix of amusement and defiance. Classic rock blared from a paint-splattered radio, mingling with the alkaline scent of setting concrete. Marcus mixed the batch with care, reinforcing the can's core with steel rebar for maximum durability. The design was ingenious: a hollow bottom for weight distribution, drainage holes for functionality, and an exterior that mimicked every other trash can on the block. To the untrained eye, it was just another plastic bin. Inside, it was a 60-pound fortress, ready to teach Brenda a lesson in physics. Monday morning, Marcus positioned his concrete masterpiece at the curb, exactly 3 feet from the edge as city ordinance required. He stood at his kitchen window, coffee mug warm in his hands, as Brenda's Escalade rumbled into view. Her approach was slower this time, cautious, as if she sensed something was off. At 15 miles per hour, her usual ramming speed, she struck. The sound was glorious, a solid thunk, followed by the screech of metal buckling. Her running board crumpled like foil, while the concrete can sat unmoved, its surface barely scuffed. Brenda sat in her SUV for a full 30 seconds, engine idling, her confusion palpable. She tried again from a different angle, only to dent her bumper further. Marcus watched, his pulse steady, as her $60,000 vehicle began to pay the price for her hubris. The beauty of the setup was its legality. No city ordinances were violated, no HOA rules broken, just a homeowner upgrading his property with better materials. Brenda's insurance company would have to eat the cost of her self-inflicted damage. Over the next week, she made 5 more attempts, each one leaving new scars on her Escalade. A cracked headlight, a misaligned fender, a running board now hanging like a broken wing. The concrete can, meanwhile, stood smugly intact, its scuff marks adding character. The neighborhood buzzed with gossip. Mrs. Rodriguez timed Brenda's collisions from her porch, while the Elm Street teenagers started a betting pool on how much damage she'd inflict before giving up. Emma, torn between embarrassment and pride, reported that her classmates were calling their house the concrete can place. Brenda's response was to double down. She transformed from neighborhood busybody to amateur detective, her obsession with Marcus's trash can bordering on paranoia. Mrs. Olivia called one morning, her voice hushed, reporting that Brenda had been spotted in Marcus's driveway at midnight with a flashlight and a bathroom scale, trying to weigh the can. The mental image, Brenda in her navy blazer, wrestling with a scale in the dark, made Marcus chuckle, but it also raised the stakes. She was trespassing now, her desperation pushing her into legally murky territory. Her campaign extended beyond physical confrontations. Brenda cornered Jim Torres, the maintenance guy, at the hardware store, grilling him about concrete purchases and suspicious homeowner projects. She scoured Marcus's Facebook posts for hints of construction, her digital stalking as relentless as her morning drives. Then came the bureaucratic assault, a complaint to the city about unauthorized concrete structures on Marcus's property. The building inspector, Pete, arrived with a weary sigh, clipboard in hand. After a 30-second glance at the trash can, he shook his head. "It's a garbage container, not a building," he said. "No permits needed, no violations found." Marcus sensed Brenda's frustration growing, her escalades mounting damage a visible testament to her unraveling control. Meanwhile, Marcus was building his own arsenal. He filed a formal HOA complaint about selective enforcement, attaching photos of 14 other properties with identical violations, overgrown grass, faded mailboxes, damaged screens, that Brenda had ignored. The complaint forced the board into a corner: enforce rules equally or admit to targeting Marcus. Either way, Brenda's position was weakening. His research into Fair Housing Act violations revealed a damning pattern. Of Brenda's 67 violation notices over the past year, 49 targeted single parents, elderly residents, or minorities. The numbers screamed discrimination, and Marcus knew a civil rights attorney would salivate over the case. The community was shifting too. The Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group, started by an anonymous neighbor, gained 67 members in a week, with residents sharing their own stories of Brenda's overreach. Mrs. Patterson posted about a $50 fine for her rose bush's excessive height. The Johnsons on Oak Street were cited for their kids' sidewalk chalk art. Even Gerald Thornfield, Brenda's boardroom ally, was reportedly distancing himself, his tie adjustments at meetings growing more frantic. The neighborhood was waking up, and Brenda's grip was slipping. By mid-November, Marcus's concrete can had become a local legend, its daily survival a middle finger to Brenda's authority. But Marcus wasn't just fighting for his trash can anymore. A conversation with Patricia Lopez, the board's lone reasonable member, planted a seed of suspicion. Brenda had been pushing for maintenance contracts with an obscure company, her proposals suspiciously detailed. Marcus's electrician instincts kicked in again: follow the money, find the fault. As he prepared to dig into HOA financials, Brenda's Escalade made collision attempt number 53, her headlight now dangling like a loose tooth. The war was escalating, and Marcus was ready to pull the plug on her scheme. Uncovering the embezzlement empire. The November frost had settled over Pinewood Gardens, turning lawns crisp and mailboxes slick with dew, but the chill in the air was nothing compared to the cold realization dawning on Marcus Holloway. His concrete trash can, now a neighborhood icon with its battle scars proudly displayed, had done more than withstand Brenda Whitmore's Escalade assaults. It had exposed a crack in her carefully constructed facade. Marcus's electrician instincts, honed by years of tracing hidden faults, were buzzing. Brenda's obsession with his trash can wasn't just about control, it was about protecting something bigger, something buried in the HOA's financials. The turning point came during a quiet Sunday evening when Marcus, instead of helping Emma with her history paper or Tyler with algebra, found himself hunched over his laptop, diving into the city's public contract database. Patricia Lopez, the lone reasonable HOA board member, had tipped him off about Brenda's aggressive push for maintenance contracts with an unfamiliar company. The suspicion gnawed at Marcus like a frayed wire sparking in the dark. He started with a simple search for Whitmore in the business registry, and what he found made his coffee go cold. Whitmore Construction LLC, formed 6 months earlier, listed Brenda as a 40% owner and her husband, Richard, as president. The timeline was chilling: company formation in May, first HOA contract bid in July, and the trash can attacks starting in September, just days after Marcus had questioned the board's bloated maintenance budget. Digging deeper, Marcus uncovered a pattern that would make a forensic accountant's heart race. Over 4 months, Whitmore Construction had secured 7 HOA contracts: landscaping, sidewalk repairs, community center touch-ups, playground maintenance, totaling $23,400. Each bid undercut competitors by a razor-thin $50 to $100, just enough to win without raising red flags. Brenda had voted to approve every contract, her conflict of interest as blatant as the dents on her Escalade. The HOA's meeting minutes, public records, and bank deposit slips painted a damning picture. Community dues were being funneled directly into the Whitmore family's pockets. Marcus's pulse quickened as he realized his trash can wasn't just a target, it was a threat to Brenda's entire embezzlement scheme. The discovery flipped the script. Brenda's morning collisions, her violation notices, her next-door rants, they weren't just petty bullying. They were desperate attempts to distract and intimidate a neighbor who'd unknowingly gotten too close to her secret. Marcus's polite question about maintenance costs at the September board meeting had set off her campaign, and his concrete can had escalated it into a full-blown panic. He printed every document, backed them up on 3 cloud services, and emailed the entire dossier to Amanda Sterling, his property rights attorney, with a note, "Urgent review requested, criminal implications possible." Brenda's behavior grew more erratic. Her Escalade, now a battered shadow of its former glory, cruised past Marcus's house at odd hours, its headlights sweeping the driveway like a searchlight. Mrs. Olivia reported seeing Brenda at midnight, flashlight in hand, measuring the concrete can's dimensions as if it held the key to her salvation. Jim Torres, the maintenance guy, overheard her at the hardware store, interrogating the clerk about concrete sales with a fervor that bordered on unhinged. She even filed a second city complaint, this time alleging Marcus's can was a structural hazard. The inspector, a different one this time, spent 5 minutes poking at it before declaring it a non-issue. "It's a trash can, not a skyscraper," he muttered, climbing back into his truck. Marcus wasn't standing still. He assembled a war room in his garage, clearing workbenches to make space for folding tables and a makeshift evidence board. By 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, his coalition gathered, Mrs. Olivia with her thermos of jasmine tea, Jim Torres in his jangling tool belt, Patricia Lopez with a stack of pilfered HOA financials, and Dale Kowalski with a box of donuts and a grin that said he was enjoying the chaos. Marcus laid out the evidence like a prosecutor. $23,400 in questionable contracts, 7 conflict of interest violations, 53 recorded collision attempts, and a GPS tracker found under his work truck, a $300 device that screamed illegal surveillance. The team mapped out a multi-pronged attack: legal pressure through Amanda Sterling, social pressure via community organizing, political pressure through media, and financial pressure by demanding an audit. The community campaign kicked off the next morning. Marcus, armed with presentation boards and a binder of evidence, knocked on every door in Pinewood Gardens. The response was electric. 89 residents signed a petition for property rights, 34 demanded an immediate financial audit, and 12 volunteered to testify at the next board meeting. Mrs. Rodriguez, initially wary, signed after learning Brenda had fined her for a 15-minute trash can timing violation. The Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group exploded, gaining 94 members in days. Neighbors shared stories of Brenda's overreach, fines for rose bushes, citations for chalk art, warnings for unapproved porch decorations. A viral time-lapse video of Brenda's collisions, set to circus music, racked up views across suburban Ohio. Brenda's desperation was palpable. She hired Riverside Security for $200 a day to surveil Marcus's house, a move Jim Torres uncovered through a contact. Her Escalade's damage hit $1,200, with a dangling headlight and a bumper that rattled like loose change. The neighborhood kids, now calling Marcus's Ken the indestructible, gathered at bus stops to watch her daily failures. Emma's friends at school dubbed their house the Concrete Castle, while Tyler considered charging for collision video viewings. But Brenda's tactics were darkening. Emma came home upset, having overheard Brenda at a school event calling Marcus a dangerous influence, with thinly veiled racial undertones. The comments stung, threatening Marcus's custody case, and pushed him to hire Beth Morrison, a retired police detective, to document Brenda's stalking. The financial trail grew hotter. Marcus's public records dive revealed Whitmore Construction's bids were suspiciously timed, always submitted just before HOA meetings where Brenda controlled the agenda. The company's bank deposits aligned perfectly with HOA payouts, and Brenda's failure to disclose her ownership violated state nonprofit law. The evidence was bulletproof. civil liability for mismanagement, criminal exposure for fraud, and automatic board removal for conflicts of interest. Marcus's concrete can had become a wrecking ball, poised to demolish Brenda's empire. As the Tuesday board meeting loomed, Brenda's Escalade made collision attempt number 57, leaving her bumper in pieces on Marcus's driveway. She retrieved it in her business attire, neighbors watching from windows, her humiliation public and complete. Marcus, sipping coffee, knew the real showdown was hours away. His evidence was ready, his allies mobilized, and the media, Channel 7 and Metro Weekly, were circling. Brenda's reign was crumbling, and Marcus was about to pull the final wire. The desperate descent of Brenda Whitmore. The November air in Pinewood Gardens grew sharp, the frost clinging to lawns like a warning of the reckoning to come. Marcus Holloway's corner lot, with its now legendary concrete trash can, stood as a defiant monument to his resistance against Brenda Whitmore's tyranny. The neighborhood buzzed with anticipation, the Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group swelling to 94 members, each post fueling a growing rebellion against Brenda's reign. Her pearl-white Escalade, battered from 57 failed assaults on Marcus's fortress, was a rolling testament to her unraveling control. But as Marcus's coalition tightened their grip, Brenda's desperation spiraled into a frenzy that bordered on criminal. The week before the pivotal Tuesday HOA board meeting, Brenda's tactics took a darker turn. Late Saturday night, Marcus jolted awake to the hiss of spray paint outside his bedroom window. His motion sensor lights revealed a shadowy figure crouched beside his concrete can, defacing it with bright orange letters spelling, "Move." By the time Marcus grabbed his phone and stumbled outside, the vandal had vanished, but his security cameras captured the license plate of Brenda's Escalade parked 3 houses down. The graffiti, easily pressure-washed off the concrete, was a minor annoyance compared to the audacity of her midnight trespass. Marcus filed the footage with Beth Morrison, his hired retired detective, whose daily reports on Brenda's behavior were building a case for stalking. Monday brought a new low. An anonymous tip to the gas company claimed Marcus was conducting suspicious excavation that could damage underground lines. The utility inspector, a weary man with a clipboard, spent 2 hours probing Marcus's property with detection equipment, only to find nothing. "Whoever called this in needs their head checked," he muttered, packing up. Marcus suspected Brenda's hand immediately. Her pattern of weaponizing bureaucracy was unmistakable. Later that day, Jim Torres, the maintenance worker, pulled Marcus aside at the hardware store, his face grim. Brenda had hired Riverside Security for $200 a day to surveil Marcus's house, an escalation that screamed paranoia. "She's lost it," Jim said, shaking his head. "Paying to spy on a trash can? That's next-level crazy." The most alarming discovery came Friday evening. Tyler, tinkering with his bike in the driveway, spotted a small black device with blinking lights attached to the undercarriage of Marcus's work truck. A professional-grade GPS tracker, magnetically mounted, costing around $300, placed without consent, it was blatantly illegal. Marcus photographed it meticulously before removing it and driving to the police station. Officer Derek Martinez, taking the report, looked grim. "This isn't just a neighborhood spat anymore," he said. "Unauthorized surveillance, stalking, vandalism, this is criminal territory." Marcus's evidence folder now bulged with proof: 57 collision videos, the GPS tracker, spray paint footage, and Beth Morrison's detailed harassment logs. Brenda's insurance fraud added fuel to the fire. She'd filed a $3,200 claim for road hazard damage to her Escalade, conveniently omitting that she deliberately rammed Marcus's can. His Ring camera footage, showing weeks of intentional collisions, blew her story apart. When State Farm's investigator, Maria Santos, called Marcus, he provided a comprehensive evidence package, videos, witness statements, and a mechanic's assessment of the damage patterns. "This isn't road hazard," Maria said sharply. "This is deliberate destruction. We're denying the claim and referring it to our fraud unit." The insurance angle was now a criminal investigation, piling onto Brenda's growing legal troubles. Her harassment campaign extended to Marcus's family. Emma came home from school in tears after overhearing Brenda at a parent event, labeling Marcus a dangerous influence unfit for the neighborhood. The racial undertones, thinly veiled, hit like a punch, threatening Marcus's custody case. Tyler, ever resilient, suggested selling tickets to Brenda's morning collisions, but the strain was wearing on both kids. Marcus's resolve hardened. He wasn't just fighting for his trash can or his property, he was protecting his family's future. The community's anger was boiling over. The Facebook group became a digital war room, with neighbors posting about Brenda's overreach. Fines for flower beds, citations for kids' toys, warnings for unapproved holiday lights. Mrs. Patterson shared a story of Brenda measuring her rose bushes with a ruler at dawn. The Johnsons on Oak Street were hit with a $50 fine for their daughter's chalk drawings. Even Gerald Thornfield, Brenda's boardroom ally, was reportedly pulling back, his nervous tie tugging a sign of his unease. The Elm Street teens turned Brenda's collisions into a neighborhood spectacle, their betting pool now including odds on her next repair bill. Monday morning, hours before the board meeting, Brenda made a final, desperate play. Gerald called an emergency closed-door session to address escalating liability concerns. Through the community center's blinds, Marcus saw Brenda waving documents, her gestures frantic. Patricia Lopez, texting from inside, revealed Brenda's wild claim. Marcus had made terrorist threats and built a dangerous modification with his concrete can. She demanded emergency powers to seize it. The board's attorney, Harold Masterson, looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, his $400 an hour fee no match for Brenda's chaos. The cover-up attempt was laughably clumsy. Brenda backdated conflict of interest disclosures for Whitmore Construction, but email timestamps betrayed the forgery. Her insurance claim was unraveling under Maria Santos's scrutiny, with subpoenas issued for HOA financials and board communications. Then came a bombshell. Richard Whitmore, Brenda's husband, called Marcus, his voice hollow. "She spent $8,000 on lawyers, surveillance, and repairs," he said. "Our insurance is canceled. The business is collapsing. What will it take to end this?" Marcus's response was calm but firm. Brenda's crimes, stalking, vandalism, fraud, and embezzlement weren't negotiable. A $12,500 settlement was in play, but justice was non-negotiable. 2 hours before the meeting, Brenda filed an emergency restraining order alleging fake threats and doctored photos. Judge Patricia Williams dismissed it outright, calling the evidence clearly fabricated and warning Brenda of contempt charges. The legal noose was tightening: insurance fraud, stalking, and IRS scrutiny over unreported contract income. As 6 p.m. neared, the community center parking lot overflowed with cars, neighbors arriving with lawn chairs and signs. Channel 7's news van rolled in, followed by Channel 12 and Metro Weekly. The stage was set, and Brenda, unaware of the trap, was walking into a public reckoning. The fall of the HOA empire. The Pinewood Gardens Community Center was a pressure cooker on that fateful Tuesday evening, its cramped space packed with 127 homeowners, every resident of the neighborhood, plus a swarm of media crews from Channel 7, Channel 12, and Metro Weekly. The air was thick with the scent of nervous sweat and overbrewed coffee, the fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of angry hornets. Marcus Holloway sat in the third row, his concrete trash can parked beside the podium like a silent witness, its scuffed surface a badge of victory. Across the room, Brenda Whitmore, clad in funereal black, sat at the board table, her hands trembling as she clutched a pen that tapped out a frantic rhythm. Gerald Thornfield, the HOA president, adjusted his tie with the desperation of a man feeling the noose tighten. The stage was set for a reckoning that would reshape Pinewood Gardens forever. Marcus had spent weeks preparing for this moment, his electrician's precision guiding every move. His evidence folder, 3 bankers' boxes stuffed with collision videos, financial records, witness statements, and criminal complaints, was a legal sledgehammer. The Pinewood Gardens Transparency Facebook group had rallied 94 neighbors, their stories of Brenda's harassment fueling a community uprising. The media, tipped off by Marcus's meticulously prepared press kit, had descended like vultures, their cameras trained on the unfolding drama. As Gerald called the meeting to order, his voice cracking under the weight of the crowd's anticipation, Marcus stood, his presentation boards ready to dismantle Brenda's empire. He began with a calm authority, his voice cutting through the room's tension like a wire stripper through insulation. This wasn't about trash cans or HOA bylaws, he declared. It was about accountability and stopping corruption before it destroyed their community. He projected a timeline of Brenda's 57 collision attempts, each crash replayed in high-definition glory, the audience gasping at the escalating damage to her Escalade. The GPS tracker illegally placed on his truck, the midnight spray paint vandalism, the fraudulent $3,200 insurance claim, all laid bare with irrefutable evidence. But the true bombshell was the financial exposé. $23,400 in HOA contracts funneled to Whitmore Construction, Brenda's family business, through 7 undisclosed conflicts of interest. The projector screen glowed with bank records and meeting minutes, each slide a nail in Brenda's coffin. The room erupted as neighbors connected the dots. Rising HOA fees had been padding Brenda's bank account. Mrs. Rodriguez stood, her voice trembling with fury as she recounted her own $50 fine for a 15-minute trash can violation. The Elm Street teenagers clapped like they were at a rock concert, their betting pool on Brenda's collisions now a footnote to her downfall. Brenda's composure shattered. She leapt from her chair, shrieking about harassment and outsiders ruining property values, her words laced with racial undertones that drew gasps from the crowd. Channel 7's cameras captured every moment of her meltdown, her mascara-streaked face a portrait of self-inflicted ruin. Harold Masterson, her $400 an hour attorney, tried to intervene, but Brenda was beyond reason, grabbing Marcus's evidence boards in a futile attempt to tear them apart. Jim Torres and 2 neighbors gently restrained her as she screamed about protecting neighborhood integrity. The turning point came when Officer Derek Martinez entered, his official folder bearing a warrant for insurance fraud and stalking charges. The room fell silent, the only sound Brenda's pen clattering to the floor. Gerald's call for a recess was ignored as Patricia Lopez, the board's voice of reason, stood to deliver the final blow. Her motion to suspend Brenda pending a criminal investigation and financial audit passed unanimously, 4-0, with Brenda handcuffed to Martinez's chair, her abstention a formality. The crowd roared, a mix of applause and righteous indignation, as Brenda's reign collapsed in real time. The aftermath was swift and merciless. By Thursday, Brenda resigned in a bitter 2-line letter, citing a hostile work environment. The district attorney filed insurance fraud charges carrying 6 months in jail and $5,000 in fines. Her insurance license was revoked, and Whitmore Construction's contractor certification was suspended. An emergency HOA audit by Patterson and Associates CPAs recovered $47,000 in overcharges, resulting in $170 refund checks for every homeowner by Christmas, a tangible victory that tasted sweeter than holiday pie. Richard Whitmore, broken by the ordeal, mailed Marcus a $12,500 settlement check, admitting Brenda was fleeing to Florida to live with her sister. Marcus felt a flicker of pity but remembered the GPS tracker, the fake complaints, and the racial slurs aimed at his family. Some lessons, he thought, come at a steep price. Pinewood Gardens transformed in the wake of Brenda's fall. Patricia Lopez was elected board president by unanimous vote, her platform of transparency and community engagement a stark contrast to Brenda's autocracy. The board implemented conflict of interest disclosures, monthly financial reports, and public bidding processes that set a new standard for HOA governance. The recovered embezzlement funds financed a playground renovation, with Emma and Tyler helping design the equipment alongside neighbors who'd once viewed Marcus's family with suspicion. The community healed, united by their shared victory over corruption. The legal ripples extended far beyond Pinewood Gardens. Holloway versus Pinewood Gardens HOA became a precedent in 12 Ohio property rights cases, inspiring the state's HOA Accountability Act, which mandated financial transparency and audits. Channel 7's investigative series, featuring Marcus's evidence, won a regional Emmy, and reporter Sarah Kim became a regular contact for HOA reform commentary. The collision videos went viral, amassing 200,000 YouTube views and sparking resistance movements across the Midwest. Marcus's concrete can, now displayed in the community center with a bronze plaque reading "Property Rights Protected," 2023, became a symbol of defiance. The neighborhood embraced its newfound unity. The annual Concrete Can Days Festival, launched the following September, drew 800 attendees with bounce houses, barbecue competitions, and homeowner rights workshops. Marcus established the Marcus Holloway Property Rights Scholarship with the settlement funds, supporting 4 students who showed creative problem-solving against institutional overreach. Emma's college essay about fighting corruption with evidence earned her journalism school acceptances, while Tyler's Suburban Justice YouTube channel gained a following covering HOA disputes. Marcus's custody evaluation improved, the judge praising his principled stand, and his electrical business boomed with referrals from neighbors impressed by his strategic tenacity. As Marcus stood in his driveway a year later, watching kids play on the new playground, he reflected on the battle. Brenda's Escalade was gone, her legacy reduced to a cautionary tale. His concrete can, scuffed but unbroken, had done more than protect his trash. It had rewired a community, proving that preparation, evidence, and a 60-pound fortress could topple even the most entrenched bully. The victory was concrete in every sense, a testament to the power of standing firm and fighting smart.